In this video, we're going to be discussing the great sage Abaye. Abaye, his father's name was Khalil. His Khalil's brother was Rava, the sage we discussed in the previous video. Khalil unfortunately passed away before Abaye was born, and Abaye's mother passed away during childbirth, so therefore he never knew his parents. He was raised by a woman who he would later call his mother, and in fact, he quotes in the Talmud many times. He would say, "Amr li'eh, my mother told me," and things of that nature. However, that was not his actual birth mother. His uncle, the great sage Rabbah, who we previously discussed, raised him as well, and because of that, he did not want to call him by his birth name. His birth name was Nachmeni. He was named after Rabbah's father, meaning Abaye was named after his grandfather, Nachmeni. However, because he did not want to say his father's name, Rabbah did not want to say his father's name, he would call him Abaye, which means my father, essentially. It translates essentially to my father. So that's how Abaye got his name. As a young man, he studied even by the great sage Rabbi Yehuda, the teacher of his uncle Rabba, as a very young boy. And there's the Talmud quotes a time where he asked a question to Rabbi Yehuda, and but his main teacher obviously was his uncle Rabba, as well as his Rabba's colleague Rav Yosef, who succeeded Rabba, as we discussed previously, as the Rosh Yeshiva of Pumpedisa. In fact, he was such a dedicated student of Rav Yosef that it says that when he would see the ears of the donkey of Rav Yosef, he would already stand up to greet him. And he learned from Yosef many teachings of, as we mentioned previously, Rav Yosef was known for his adherence to tradition and memorizing all the traditions. And Rav Yosef taught many of those traditions to Abaye. And in fact, when Rav Yosef had a memory loss issue, as we discussed in the video of Rav Yosef, Abaye was the one who reminded Rav Yosef of his Torah learning and would reteach Rav Yosef, his teacher, essentially, his Torah learning. He also learned a lot of teachings from the rabbis who at that time were coming from the land of Israel to Babylon, including but not limited to Rav Dimi Bar Avin and others, and he quotes him often. In fact, he had this very interesting relationship with the land of Israel, and he would say that two of ours, meaning two rabbis in Babylon, do not equal one of theirs, and to the effect that they would come to the land of Babylon and they would have their own tradition of the halacha as was decided in the land of Israel, and not always did that halacha coincide with the way the halacha was decided in Babylon. Nonetheless, Abaye ruled, and they were allowed to follow their tradition. And in fact, he said, really, we should follow their tradition because they are so much greater than we are. Abaye's probably most famous for being a colleague of Rava. So let's take a step back. What is the connection between Abaye and Rava? So after the passing of Rav Yosef, there was which is again Rav Yosef succeeded Abaye's uncle Rava, then was Rav Yosef for 2 years, and then the question was who should be the next Rosh Yeshiva, and there were 4 candidates. The 4 candidates were Abaye, Rava, Rav Zera, and Rabba Bar Masna. Those were the 4 candidates, and they said whoever could teach a teaching that cannot be refuted in any way, that one he will be the Rosh Yeshiva, and Abaye became the Rosh Yeshiva. We'll discuss Rava in a coming video and his reaction to that. So Abaye becomes the Rosh Yeshiva and of Pumbedisa, and he ends up having many debates with his colleague Rava, and in fact, the Talmud, many times it says that the whole Talmud essentially is the debates of Abaye and Rava. And the halacha generally follows Rava, except in 6 occasions the halacha follows Abaye, and they are known as the acronym Yal Kagam, Yud Ayin Lamed Kuf Gimel Mem, and it's an acronym for the 6 times that the halacha follows Abaye. in his youth he was very poor, and he would study even though he suffered from hunger. Later he ended up work he would study during the day and he would work at night in agriculture, and to the point later in his life he was able to um, hire workers, and he was able to uh, you know sustain himself, and then he could focus on study. um, he was also very pious, and he was also very involved in charitable acts, and that to the point where any person who passed by, any elderly person would pass by him, he would give him a donation, and that was one of the ways that he would do his charity. Um, Whenever a young scholar would finish a tractate of Talmud, he would make a holiday, a Yom Tov, for the rabbis in order to encourage Torah study. Let's go through a few sayings of Abaye. One saying of his was, "The whole Torah is mipnei darkei shalom," is because of ways of peace, and this was his way of saying that even though when there's a kind of a conflict between peace and Torah, we have to follow the way. We have to realize that Torah is coming to teach us peace, so we have to kind of square that circle. Poor is a mindset. In the original, ein ani ela b'deya, right? A poor person is only poor in knowledge or in mindset. Um, the name the name of God should become beloved because of your actions. That was another one of his teachings. And lastly, we'll end with a um, teaching of Abaye, that Abaye loved the Hebrew language, and he actually taught that, in contrary to many of his time, that one can speak in mundane matters, meaning not Torah matters, in the Hebrew tongue, in Lashon HaKodesh, even though that again many people felt that it should only be reserved for Torah study and prayer, but he felt that it was important that one is allowed to talk Torah in talk non-Torah subjects, I should say, in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Hebrew tongue, in the Holy Tongue, and which ended up leading to the proliferation of the Hebrew language. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, anything we could have said, should have said, put it in the comments. We love the feedback, and we'll see you, God willing, in the next video.